Welcome back. Well, we go back to one of our top stories this morning, the tragic passing of MEC for Education in the Free State, Tate Makgoe. The 59-year-old and his bodyguard were killed in a car crash in the early hours of this morning. Makgoe had held the Education MEC post since 2009. Let's speak now to Executive Director of the National Professional Teachers Organization of South Africa, Basil Manuel. Basil, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's just so unfortunate that, teachers and learners and parents in the Free State woke up to news of this tragic passing. Your thoughts on the life of Tate Makgoe?
Good morning, Thokoza, and thanks for having me. At first, to express condolences to the family of both MEC Tate as well as his bodyguard's family, of course, and then to the education fraternity, because his passing is a loss, not only for the Free State but nationally as well. We've had a good working relationship with MEC Tate, one where we've boxed sometimes and one where we've agreed on many things. The tragedy is that somebody that has been making such an invaluable contribution is suddenly snatched from us. We want to acknowledge his commitment, his enthusiasm, and certainly him walking the road with the province and ensuring that he was there all the time. His contribution as an enthusiastic MEC cannot be forgotten. And especially, of course, his commitment to improving the conditions in the Free State. And so for us, it's a real tragedy, provincially and nationally, as well as, of course, for the teaching fraternity like the unions who've had a solid relationship with him.
Yeah. National Education Minister Angie Motshekga releasing the statement this morning to express her shock and sadness at the passing of Tate Makgoe, noting and attributing the success of the province when it comes to the matric pass rate, to his dedication and his commitment to the work. But 14 years in the post, what does it take to have that kind of, staying leadership power, with all the sort of political influx that we've been seeing in that province?
It speaks to his solid nature, and it speaks to the vision that he had. If he was visionless, he wouldn't have remained so long. But he knew where he was going, and he knew what he wanted to achieve. And he surrounded himself with a good team of people, because that is also what leaders do. They attract good people to themselves. And the mutual respect that he showed for his team, and the acknowledgement he always gave the team for the achievement, is what made him special. He did not pretend that this was his achievement. It was the achievement of the team. But the team has to be led, and that is what we are paying tribute to. His sterling leadership, his unfailing commitment to wanting to ensure that every child stands a better chance, has a better life chance in his province, and he certainly succeeded. And we want to say to his family, he ran a race and he ran it well.
What can we learn from the MEC, Basil? Because we talk often about provinces who are struggling when it comes to their education system, struggling to turn things around, struggling to get those pass rates up, struggling to get children excited about learning. He, of course, as we mentioned, was in the post for a long time, managed to turn things around, but also keep the Free State, at the pinnacle of its performance. What can we learn, I suppose, from what he was able to inject in that province?
I think one of the first things that we got to know about MEC Tate was his stability and the stability he brought to the department. If the department is fractious, you are not going to see everybody running in the same direction. And that was one of his greater attributes, is the stability he brought. And of course, thankfully, he was there for a long time, so that stability endured. And we certainly want to see it enduring now after his time, because with that stability came a common vision. And the common vision is what drove the department. We can go back many years to see how things have changed and improved. And yes, Naptosa has had differences with the MEC, as every union does. But it was a difference about issues and not about the people. And we could never detract from the commitment he had and his absolutely perfect dedication to the task at hand, irrespective of what things were there. And I think there's something to learn from having a vision, having been committed, and also, of course, creating that stability, which is ultimately what wins the race.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know what his background is, whether or not it was a background in education, but I suppose there's something to be said about that, you know, individuals who fill these offices, which are oftentimes, you know, political appointments, they don't necessarily always have to have a background in education, but what are the key characteristics that you think someone in such a position ought to have to move a department like the education department forward? Because, you know, it is constant engagements with unions, with teachers, with parents, with learners in finding out what they need and getting those needs addressed as well.
I think the fact that MEC Tate was a lifelong learner. He had a number of qualifications to his name, and of course not in education per se, but because he was a learner, because he knew education, he then could excel at the demands that education brought. He sympathized with the difficulties that come with education and the difficulties of the ordinary people who have to battle to get a good education. And that lifelong learning ethic that he had certainly contributed to making of him a good MEC. You don't have to be a teacher. You don't have to be an education specialist to be a good MEC. But you must have heart. You must have heart, you must have commitment, and you must know what the wishes of people are. And people want better for their children. There is no parent that wants to see their children worse off than what they were. And he identified that. So in paying tribute to a person who made an immense contribution, the one thing that Naptosa wants to ask is that we emulate his commitment, because ultimately that is what carried the day. The ordinary teacher, the teacher in every school, could talk of his commitment to the task at hand. He was a man of the job.
Right, we'll leave it there for now. Basil, thank you so much. That's Executive Director of Naptosa, Basil Manuel, helping us there to reflect on the life of the late education MEC in the Free State, Tate Makgoe. Let's get your results from